Cheers, indeed. So, I was taste testing some blue apricot or apricot sherbet, depending on how you say it, and some hazy AZ, which is, both were wonderful, by the way. So, if you look at position, length, height, width, plumb, and level, all right, those then being 6 ideas that you should measure before you decide to build on the plane of existence, whether that be physical or spiritual. So then, if you take a look at, I just typed this in, I'll make sure this is current. All right, so there you go. Here's current. If you know the way that the system works, you can take any, right here, we'll just say, make sure one more time, make sure that's right here. All right, here we go. So this is the latest deal. Right within this first search, you see within seconds, so the 2-7 or the 9, but also with the idea of the 7-7-14 into the 5, or the senses. So this idea of bringing something into the senses. How then is that reflected? If you look here at the 3-1, if you reverse that, it's the 13 idea corona or crown, what one's mind that went through the door. Those, remember those 7s? The 7, the idea of the Zion or the mind, reflected unto itself, the 7-7, that idea of the 1 standing before the open door, the 4, becoming, 5, those are your senses, or the mind drives in the body. So I wanted to show you, if you just look even just within this is why you don't even have to go into the stories, it's all nonsense. 1-1, so then the idea of 1-1, or the idea of 1 standing before 1. Now that 1 is everything, that 1 is all numbers combined, because it is 1. It is a set. Do you see? It is an idea. All right, so that 1 contains everything else. So then what then is the trick or the trap? That's the light. That's the false light. The idea of the Satan. All right? The Satan is in the details. The devil's in the details. So then if this false light from the directional beast, the north, east, west, south idea of the plane of existence where you exist, then this will lead you into temptation, right? Even with the name being, going back to the idea of hunter, which is going into the Genesis 4 idea with Lamech, the Biden character, the hunter, Biden being the son, or the Tubal-Cain character, with the Trump being the Cain character, or the one who is then brought down with the bow of Lamech. That's a Genesis 4 idea, and I'll show you something else here as well. So also the idea of Mish, which is the idea of flesh at the root. Not the idea, not the idea of a people and there's respect and blah blah blah. No, this is just the flesh. This is just the meat. All right. It's derogatory. It's just people placed to hold, so that they can have a story assigned to them at a later date. They're just useful idiots. Characters in a play. If you want to see the Indian hoax, the big casino, it's in the video lineup. Take a look. So then, if you see this is the idea from the book of Adam and Eve. All right. So chapter 2:7. Remember that 2:7 was here already. It just so happens to be the same where the devil, or the idea of the evil, the lie, all right, minus the V, the lie, reflected or believed on, the Satan, the idea of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that idol being pushed into time or motion, 69, by the I/O, the input equals output. If you take in the story, if you take in the Satan, that Satan then becomes your momentum or your forward movement, your spent time. All right? Because just like here, they saw the light. This is what the plan was. All right? Fancying, wanting it to be real. All right? So I'm not going to ruin the story for you. But these are just different links within that same story that gives you ideas of why the so-called political news, or the idea of the water, the idea of politics, is playing certain characters coming back from this idea of Genesis 4, the idea of a fallen or a false created door or a false way. All right. So then I did want to show you this, and this is also to go into why you have a lot of Indian in the news. All right. This is why when you look at the idea of chapter 18, the idea of the details before the one brought into being, the idol, it says this would be chapter 18. Verse 9, the idea of the 6 and the 9 coming into time. And a wind came to blow from heaven by command of God that carried away the serpent from Adam and Eve and threw it on the seashore and landed in India. India. That is why that country has the idea of the serpent and the Lucifer and the Satan and the beast as a so-called God. And that is why you have the serpent manifest through all the different medical, judgmental type of institutions, because they are under control of the serpent, or the fallen light, which, if you went back to this chapter, 27, you would have seen is the light within the time frame you're existing now, which is misleading man. All right, man's mind, the idea of mind. What's between your ears? All right, what are you thinking about? So I also wrote this before this would be on 7/7. Remember the idea going back to the 2/7. I wrote this on 7/7/2022 about how the Indian sits with the queen, and this would be the idea of the servant becomes the master. All right, kind of an end times reference as well. As well, I put it over here on this Twitter, which is the idea of the little Indian boys, the idea of a certain idea or idol being brought into time from a place where it was planted in at the beginning. So this is just really the end of a cycle or a story. All right, with the S's. Recall the S's, the idea of the 19 being the metonic cycle I told you about before. The 1, the input-output standing before the 9 or the idol. What happens when the 1 comes into play? The bit changes. 911. 9, 10, 11, 2. The idea of concern over and over and over again. Concern about something that, in truth, you are not going to do anything about anyway, sport. Just remember that. All right, so that's why you don't want to waste time with this nonsense. Let me go to paint. All right. So then if you have the idea of the stop, notice I put it into blue, which is really just the idea of the color of a law. All right, the blue line. That blue line keeps you within that stopped sign. All right. That stop sign is just really because you know the shape. You're looking at the shape and you know the shape. Now then, if you put an idea or a seed within that present, within that encapsulation, the 6, right? Then you attach it, the 1 is attached by 3. The 13, the idea of the mind, right? So then it is then held like a plumb bob in time, right? That idea is illuminated by remember, the thought. Now, in the Navy, with the newbies on board, they have something called a seabat. Now, you're out to sea, you're floating around, whatever, and what they'll do is they'll announce on the 1MC that they've caught a seabat, and that anybody who hasn't seen the seabat can come up to the forecastle and take a look. Now, what happens is they put a box down on the ground, a little small box with a tiny hole in it. And they tell you, well, you got to get all the way down on your knees, hands and knees, and get all the way down and look inside that hole to see the seabat. So then these people get into these awkward positions to see nothing, because there is no seabat. Because when they bend over, they smack them on the ass with a paddle. Yeah, it's that bad. So, see, that's why when you look at these boxes, there's nothing in there to see. They're asking you to look at that bat, that tab. All right? What happens with a tab is another bit of information. All right? You tab through with a browser. Do you see how that idea, that bat, is nothing more than the tab in reverse? There is no bat. So then what happens is that idea, however, becomes enthralled or fallen in love with, and that envy, like a monkey trap, that envy keeps that one eye, that illuminated eye, connected to your mind, and then you are within that encapsulation. Do you see when I turn it over and invert the colors, it becomes a room with the law or the egg sitting in the corner? And the color of pink, this false, fake idea of love and concern. You think that because you emote for some character in a play, on a screen, that you are somehow loving your neighbor? You're showing that false pink? You are lying to yourself and to your neighbor. Because what you need to tell them is that nobody died, nobody got hurt, sport. All right? So anyways, flip it back over. You still see the idea of the cube reference. Also the idea, if you look at it in the flat, as being nothing more than the pinwheel. All right? The 6-9, back in the time. Yeah, that's more than enough for today. I mean, that's fine. You get it, right? You don't need to worry about it, right? Position, length, height, width, plumb, and level. Measure it. Test it. You will find that it's built on a false foundation, and therefore you don't need to spend any more time on it. Then you can train and teach others how to see. Look at this, 34. 7. The idea of keeping all this nonsense out of your mind. 21. 3. The idea of the flip. 3, 3, 6. All right? Push together. You can see the 8. All right? Fold it over. It makes one ring. All right? It's all the same idea. It is false concern trying to bring you into a state of mourning, which is not the place to be. All right? So anyways, the Blue Dream was wonderful. I always like Bud with Blue Dream, especially with Haze. Haze always is a real nice mix. And so if I will leave the links to this Godlike Productions post, some of you might, which I did back here on 7/7 of 22, and you can read that. And I'll leave a link to this link as well, and I'll leave a link to these different chapters so you can kind of eyeball that. All right. Oh, and also don't forget to watch the Big Casino Indian Heritage Hoax video, which is somewhere on the list. All right. Cheers. Be blessed. And here's the truth of the matter. To get out of this existence, you can take my advice and put this to the test, that you can talk to my Lord, my God, Jesus Christ. All right? That's who got me out. Let's just say I was at the end of my rope. Cheers. Be blessed.